Again, our meeting, welcome, and ask you to please silence your cell phones. Um, At this moment, I would ask Representative Collins to open our meeting in prayer.
Please pray with me. Father, what a privilege to come to your throne of grace this morning with a room full of people and know that somehow we are seated in the heavenlies. So we ask for your blessings on this day. We ask for your wisdom for all the things that will happen. We ask for you to give us your compassion and your kindness so that we act better. We ask you to forgive us when we don't. So bless this meeting, bless this day. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Garrett.
Here.
Representative Keel. Representative Drummond. Representative Almond. Representative Baker. Representative Chestnut. Representative Collins. Representative Colvin. Representative Daniels.
Here.
Representative Ellis. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lovern. Representative Stubbs. Representative Wood. 8 members answering the roll. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a few members that are on their way. They had been at a breakfast. They're on the way. Any guests we need to recognize this morning from body members? If not, we have several Senate bills, and we're going to begin to move through our agenda, and then we have another presentation at the end. So, Clerk, please call the first bill.
Senate Bill 167 by Senator Coleman.
This will be tab 4 in your binders. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I think this is the first time I've been before you in the past couple of years. So hopefully it'll be easy breezy. What Senate Bill 167 does, it actually gives the potential for us to get money back into the coffers of the state of Alabama in the event there is a company that has gotten tax dollars from us, that's the public's money, and they are found to be in violation of the fair child labor laws or human trafficking laws. Representative Collins and I worked very hard on many pieces of human trafficking, piece of legislation, and of course, if someone has gotten taxpayer dollars and they are found in violation of child labor laws or human trafficking, we should be able to get that money back. So that's all this bill does. It's a clawback bill.
Clawback to the recipient of the incentive.
Yes, so if the incentive is from the general fund or the education trust fund, that money will come back to the state.
Are there any comments or questions about the bill? Representative Collins?
Thank you, Senator Coleman.
Thank you.
New and different sounding to me.
No.
But no, I appreciate you doing this. My actual first bill I ever passed in the House was a clawback bill. We didn't have a clawback provision for incentives back then, and it was the first one. I was very proud, and so I think it's a clever way to make sure that we're behaving. So at the appropriate time, I moved to give a favorable report.
Representative Daniels?
Mr. Chairman, that was my sentiments exactly, but I let the general lady make that motion, and I'll second, or we just go for a vote.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? I do have one question. There have been some publicity about not a company, but company suppliers. Does this extend just to the company?
It is to the suppliers as well. Matter of fact, thank you for that. Senator Gavan and I worked really hard on making sure that we define what that meant. Thank you.
And so it means, tell me exactly what it means then.
A supplier, someone that actually does supply, and I don't have the bill in front of me. Y'all have my whole packet, and I don't have it in front of me. But we actually worked on a specific definition. It should be a definition on there what a supplier is.
Okay. Related companies, what it says. That's right. Okay. Great. Okay, so we have a motion by Representative Collins, second by Representative Daniels. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report, and thank you. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you all so much.
We don't hear your voice in the House anymore.
Look, I need y'all to get a new picture.
Clerk, please call the next bill.
I've lost like 50 pounds since that picture. We got to get a new one. Thank y'all so much.
Clerk, please call the next bill.
Senate Bill 315 by Senator Singleton.
Good morning.
So move.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is Senate Bill 315, Actually, bill deals with the Alabama Rural Agribusiness Opportunity Zone Act. I think you and I carried this bill.
Excuse me, Senator, it's tab 2 in your folders, folks.
Okay.
Tab 2, thank you. Okay, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
think you and I carried that bill together back in 2021. However, at that time, there was no funding for this bill. And again, today, I'm not here asking for any funding. Because we were going to use the funding under the American Rescue Act, the federal rules changed on us. Treasury changed the rules on us at the last minute, so therefore we could not put the funding in this. So what we're now asking to do is to move this under Innovate Alabama, where it can be funded, to deal with agribusiness, minority-owned and women-owned businesses, to create these opportunity zones to be able to help small business get a startup. It's really an access to capital kind of bill.
Oh, it is, and I appreciate you bringing the bill back. I think actually there was the first time we brought this bill up, it was to deal with, it was just going to be a standalone bill that we were going to fund.
Right.
And then the rescue plan came down. We realized, well, we can fit money under that, which we did, but then which we did legislatively. But the feds never allowed the regulations to allow that program to happen. So then we tried to do it with the SSBCI money
Right.
that came down last couple of years, and that couldn't fit into those deals. So it's a good program, but it's just you're propping the program up. We're just departing from that federal issue we've got, and hopefully find a way to fund it down the road.
Correct.
Any questions about the bill? Favorable report, motion by Representative Drummond. Second, Representative Collins. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thank you,
Mr.
Senator.
Chairman. I really appreciate it. Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
All right.
Clerk, please call the next bill.
Senate Bill 94 by Senator Carnley.
This will be tab 5. Representative Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members. I probably have the shortest bill y'all read today. It's less than a page. It's in reference to honeybees. It is asking for a tax exemption on the supplies to produce honeybees and also the sale of honeybees. Now, at the appropriate time, I do have an amendment removing the word honey because there was some confusion there that could potentially be there, I should say, in reference to supermarkets, et cetera, if they were selling honey. So we removed that word, so there was no, the intent was never to remove tax on honey. It was to help with the honeybee production. And there is a educational component here with the Auburn University is teamed up with Enterprise State Community College to study the honeybee production and how to better the production in the state of Alabama. Right now, there's only about 17,000 hives in Alabama compared to about 300,000 in Florida. So they're trying to help build this industry up.
So this would tell us again exactly what this bill would do.
It would remove the sales tax upon the supplies to produce honeybees and honey and the byproducts of honey, and it would remove any sales tax on the byproducts such as the sale of honeybees to another place, another state, another producer, what have you. And it would also remove the sales tax upon the byproducts like royal jelly, where the queen, and it's above my pay grade explaining that, but some of the things that go into the production of honeybees and honey.
Okay. Any questions for sponsor? Representative Keel?
I'd like to offer the amendment.
Okay. Please.
It removes honey from
Yes, sir.
as Representative Marcus just described, it removes the actual honey sales from the sales tax exemption.
That's correct. Y'all probably have in your packet the actual amendment on line 21 rather. Line 21 on it just removes the word honey, and on line 23 it adds at the very end after pollen for the purpose of this section the term honeybee byproducts does not include honey. That way, that removes any question that honey, the sale of honey in the supermarket, et cetera, convenience stores, will not have the sales tax removed from the state sales tax removed from it.
So I have an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Stubbs seconds. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. All opposed? So we have adopted the amendment, now
Thank
we have the bill. Representative Almond?
I'm just trying to make sure I'm reading this right. So we are just exempting the state sales and use tax.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct, ma'am. That does not have anything to do with municipal or county.
Do I have the amendment? Who has the amendment? Oh, so Representative Drummond's going to offer an amendment, I believe. Yeah.
The amendment is replace line 23 on page 1 with the following. Pollen. C, the exemption provided in this section shall not apply to county or municipal sales or use taxes unless approved by a resolution or an ordinance adopted by the local governing body.
I would say that is a friendly amendment.
So when you offer this bill, this amendment on the floor, and Representative Wilcox comes and asks you if that provision's in there, you will be able to say yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
So we have an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment? Second, Representative Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So now we have that amendment. Is there a motion on the bill? Representative Baker gives the bill a favorable report motion, and Representative Ellis seconds. Before I do that, I want to say this. I want to give a shout out because I'm a big believer in honey. And in Trussville, Alabama, Grasshopper Cottage is my supplier, and there'll be a run on them pretty soon because I'll get the notice and it'll go quickly. And they did a lot of neat things. There's also a producer in Clay, and Representative Baker, I told you about. I found some honey from Bruton from some odd tree that has a kind of a peppery taste to it, but I've enjoyed that. But these guys are fascinating because if you find a bee swarm or a beehive in your yard, they'll come and get it and take it. But I really appreciate that industry, and I think they help my allergies in this state house as well. So
Yes, sir.
So we have an amendment. The bill is amended, given a favorable report. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Clerk, please call the next bill.
Senate Bill 297 by Senator Melson.
Representative Keel's carrying this bill today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill really does only one thing, and there's a sheet on your desk there that describes what the bill does.
Tab 6, I'm sorry, tab 6.
But it exempts capital gains on precious metals, which is gold, silver, platinum in the state. We already have exempted in the last few years the sales tax on precious metals, but this would exempt capital gains tax
On
precious metals.
On precious metals. Any questions? Representative Stubbs?
At the appropriate time, I make a motion to give the bill a favorable report.
Representative Almond?
I apologize. I am not understanding. Why would we do that?
Well,
Public purpose.
Sure. Yeah, precious metals, gold, for instance, is money. And so it's recognized in the Constitution as money. And so, and this actually works two ways, but it's money. So really, you won't realize capital gains on the money in your pocket. And this, we're going to treat the same way. It works both ways, though. The chairman and I were speaking about this before. It would not allow the state to collect capital gains tax on precious metals, but the person who owns them could not realize a loss. And so right now, precious metals are really high. And so if the market went down, they couldn't write it off on their taxes either. So it works both ways. It just recognizes we're not going to collect capital gains on precious metals.
But you do purchase, and I'm sorry, I don't know anything about buying and selling precious metals, so I apologize. But you do purchase them, right?
You do.
Okay, and so you know how much, and then you can sell them.
That's right.
And so you can either have a loss or a gain, or I guess break even.
It wouldn't recognize either of those going forward.
And again, why would we treat that any differently from other investments that we make?
Well, because it's money. And so it's not like stocks or land or something along those lines. It's recognized in the Constitution as money.
I see Senator Melson there in the back, and I may be getting this confused, but is there, does this also, are there people, shows or people that come to the state that, or am I getting that confused with something else? My question, I guess, was that, will this attract people coming to the state as well to conduct these trades or what?
Well, that would have been, yes, it would. We did that a couple of years ago for
Right,
coin
right.
shows and things like
Yes.
that. Again, and I understand where you're coming from, but dollar goes up, usually, money, it's a hedge against it, gold and bullion and things like that are. So this just gives you the ability to have something tangible in your pocket instead of money, which is essentially worthless and recognized, while the precious metal can be used for semiconductors and other things. So I hate to say an investment because that sounds just the opposite of what you're saying, but it's a hedge against inflation in that, at certain times in the future, we could see where we go back to where we have something such as bullion or coins or whatever in the form of precious metal, silver, gold, palladium, whatever, potato, that you could actually use for that. And it's just, like I say, for people like me who's skeptical about the strength of the dollar in the future, it's a way to have something that you can actually pay your debt. And I think 13 states have done this. I looked into it, and it just seems like a good, sound way to go. And also, we have somebody from the Sound Money organization, if you'd like to ask them any questions as well. They're here. Would you like to, or?
I don't think I know enough to ask any more questions.
Well, understand.
What's the federal tax policy on this type of stuff?
You would pay capital gains at the federal level
Okay.
and loss.
Okay.
But most people, everybody in here excluded, don't claim the capital gains, but they sure will claim the capital loss.
Right, right.
So you actually would probably have a net gain to the
Right.
revenue.
We have a couple questions. Representative Collins saw your hand first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's the policy on cash? Let's say if I had $100 and exchange it for euros, go to Europe, don't use any of it, come back and it's appreciated in value. What's the policy on cash? Because if that's the case, Lord have mercy, if the U.S. dollar went up today, we're all technically probably owe the federal government or state money for the appreciation in our pocket. How does it work on cash?
My understanding, there is no capital gains or loss on that. My understanding, I'm not gonna.
And your arguments, precious metals are a form of currency, so it should work the same way as cash.
That's correct.
Representative Wood?
I'm very much like my colleague here. When I think of capital gains, I don't typically think of money. So I don't know a lot about what you're saying. I think of property. But I do know when you have a capital gain on property, you are incentivized to reinvest that money so that you don't pay the capital gains. There are days that you cannot pay, but you reinvest so that everything grows. Not only your portfolio, but your state, everything around you. So this does make me question. Now, I know lately there's been a lot of information about our president who wants to raise capital gains to 40%. I've heard that and read a lot about that, and I think that has put some fear in people. So I feel a little uncomfortable just because I don't, like I said, understand everything.
Well,
But I do know that there are ways that you can reinvest and take those tax breaks, but that is not true with this currency.
I'm sorry. It has to be a
Yeah.
Yeah, something
well,
like that, where
right.
you can turn it over and
And
you can do 1031 exchanges. There's a whole lot of things you can do,
Right. It's
but
not
you're
that way with-
reinvesting. You're not just growing yourself. In
Well-
order to do that, you're helping to grow everything around you.
So can we
And
get?
that's,
Well, that would
Can I
not
make
be.
we have you had a guest here from Sound Money. I wonder if they might can just clarify, maybe
Sure.
speak to just very briefly.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it. We're not looking this as, according to the Constitution, we're not looking at this as an investment. We're looking at a way to have sound policy and be able to keep the money which it is, considered by the Constitution and pay your debt with it, not as an investment.
Okay. Just sort of a brief help address the committee, if you would.
Hi, good morning. My name is JP Cortez. I'm the executive director of the Sound Money Defense League. This bill here, Senate Bill 297, would eliminate capital gains from gold and silver in a tax-neutral way. So, like Representative Keel was saying, you wouldn't be taxed on any gain, but you also wouldn't be able to write off or deduct any losses from your gross income. So it's possible in any given year that the state's revenues would actually increase. The idea is to remonetize gold and silver. Historically, gold and silver have been money, and when a good money is stable, you can save in that money. You could simply hold money, that is savings. But today, because of inflation, because of everything going on, the dollar is inflating, and so you have to invest in risky stock options, you have to buy ETFs, you have to try different things to make your money preserve its purchasing power. Gold and silver, you don't have to do that. It is good money, it's constitutional money, for thousands of years it's been money, and it's tied to inflation pretty much. So the idea is to be able to use gold and silver as money.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, okay. So I think that's the philosophical, you have to either accept that premise or not, and then that tells you. I will make one other thing that's kind of interesting. We're the only state, thank you, we're the only state, I believe, that allows you to deduct your federal income tax on your state tax return. And so think about it, when federal taxes go up, your state taxes go down. When federal taxes go down, your state taxes go up. That's why there's been a lot of discussion in the past about maybe trying to decouple from that fluctuation, but that's just the thing to say. We're a little bit complicated. So like in your example, Representative Wood, if the capital gains tax went up federally, that'd be more you can deduct in your state return, but you know.
I totally get what you're saying, but I also know that if you put your money in the bank and you draw interest, you're going to pay tax on that. So,
right.
So what we're saying here is we're not.
Representative Stubbs.
I would just add, from an investment perspective, there are exchange-traded funds and other ways that people invest in currencies, gold, silver, and other things, and those, as they appreciate in value or decline in value, would be deductible and or taxed because they are benchmarked to this. But what we're talking about is specifically the bullion itself, which it's my understanding in Alabama, like if you buy gold from Costco, which is the thing that you see on the news now, but you do not pay sales tax when you purchase that gold from Costco, when you purchase the actual 1 ounce bar or whatever it may be. So, you know, we already have an approach in Alabama where we treat bullion as a tax neutral commodity, if you will, or you know, I guess it's, you know, it's money. We already treat it that way, and this is just codifying that, I think, from a
That's correct.
taxability perspective.
And that's the thing, we've gotten away from thinking of it as money. You know, now we have coins that aren't significant silver in them anymore, and this just allows us to go back to what we used to think before they confiscated these precious metals in the early 1900s. It goes back to the ability to use them as, you know, it does, and this does not include obviously jewelry and refined or processed gold or silver or anything like that. It's only in the bullion form.
So we have a motion, I think, by Representative Stubbs. Do we have a second?
I want to correct your record on something.
Sure.
So, and I heard the gentlewoman from Chambers mention about a 40% tax rate. That's not accurate. It's actually 25% in this Biden's latest proposal is 25%, and in its individual and assets it exceeds $100 million.
Okay.
So it's capped at 25%, not 40.
Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion by Representative Stubbs. Do we have a second? Second, Representative Keel. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Bill's given a favorable report. Thanks, Senator Melson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Clerk, please call the next bill.
Senate Bill 278 by Senator Gavan.
Senator Gavan, welcome.
Good morning, members.
This will be tab 1. Tab 1.
We have I just had the public hearing on this last time. Since then, there have been some discussions and negotiations. I know that I had some specific concerns with the sub that was drafted. Those specific concerns have been addressed in the sub. If I didn't make it clear last time, I am not a workers' compensation attorney. I've never done that kind of work. My suspicion is, I mean, we've got different interested parties that have obviously divergent interest here or concerns. I'm not sure that this is the magical thing. I mean, I'm certainly subject to somebody coming in and saying, well, you know, this is a situation that's not fair to the workers, and we need to make this change, or this is not a situation that's fair here. We have got the board cleared up. I think that was a discussion that we talked about last time. I think it's a very reasonable board in terms of having one gubernatorial appointment, one for the speaker, one by the pro tem, alternating appointments by the minority leaders, and then having a specific individual that's named within the Department of Labor that would have knowledge of workers' comp that would be on the board. So I imagine there will be a process as we go forward about how this is whittled out, but it's obviously y'all's call, but it seems like this is the vehicle. If something's going to move out today, that this is the vehicle to move out.
So can you just refresh our memories about why you're bringing this?
Sure. Right now, if a public education employee is injured on the job, and that includes school bus drivers, they do not have a workers' compensation program. There is a way to go to the Board of Adjustments, and I know the people at the Board of Adjustments would, beg to differ with me, but typically they are considered very stingy. I mean, because the state of Alabama is immune, and they're not giving up their immunity under this statute, but they're simply providing, if we were to adopt this, providing a workers' compensation program that is substantially on par with what we do provide our state employees.
And that Board of Adjustment, is it the 3 members of that board?
Three-member board, that's the auditor, the treasurer, and I think the state finance director, or maybe their designees. And they have to handle these cases. They're really not set up, especially on par when you look at how many public education employees are. Now, the good news is it's not necessarily a high risk, but as we saw last week, there can be catastrophic injuries, that our public education employees could suffer. And so what we want to do is provide a means for those people in here. PHIP has stepped up and said they will continue to cover the employees under the health insurance that they have. So, that would take care of the medical needs, but it wouldn't take care of everything else. This is a program to set up for that, especially for those that don't have their 10 years in, that can't take, it may not be the right term, but early retirement due to disability. So what was done in the sub is to largely mirror the program we have for the state employees, and which, at the end of the day, I mean, we can argue about the exact verbiage, but we'd probably be back next year, changing the state employees to equal this, because we always kind of have the G and haw in there.
So the intent here is to set up a workers' compensation program for our teachers, basically, and education employees. And this is a program, this substitute mirrors it's very similar to what is done for state employees right now. I'll say since last week, there's been a lot of discussions with you, AEA, Finance Department, class, school board, school superintendent. So a lot of people have weighed in on this. I will say, too, there was a fiscal note last week that we need to really get comfortable with, because the fiscal note from the bill last week was $14.9 million. And we need to really better understand that number. Yesterday, the Senate committee passed the education budget, and it'll be on the floor Thursday. And in the budget, they put a $14.9 million line item for workers' compensation expense in the budget, but it's conditional on this bill passing. So if this bill doesn't pass, then the Senate version will revert that money elsewhere in the budget. But so I think we've got to make sure we get the fiscal note right. And to your point, there may be some other people that need to weigh in and look at this because we got this so literally late last night. I mean, very late. So, but it does address the board. It does set up a workers' comp board and a process that's very similar to what we do with the state employees. It would take effect October of next year, October of 2025, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay, so there's some time to get into it. So if we like this idea, then I think the thing to do would be to maybe move it out of committee and continue to work on it. But we only have a couple of days left, and it's got to be resolved whether it's in the budget or not. So, and then I do want to get a better understanding of that fiscal note, and Chairman Orr does as well. You have a question, Representative Orr?
I don't think I have a question because I sat here last week and listened to both sides, and when you talk about investing in education, that's also investing in those educators and those folks who are support staff. And since last week, I got one call that really compelled me from, I won't call him a young man, but he was at one of our high schools, and a bunch of kids that he wanted off campus beat him, and he didn't retire at first, but he did later because he could no longer work. And so he's gone through this process, but he was one of the, I say blessed ones, that's what he called himself. He had tenure. So it was a little bit of a better process for him. But he called me to say, these are real problems. These are real people. These are the folks that are on the front lines with our children. Now, little Mary and little Sue are not always the best little kids, and these injuries are real. And that's what he said. He told me, he said, Representative Drummond, he said, you've got to do this bill because we have teachers and support staff that are being injured out there. And state employees and others are no more important than our educators. So I want to give the bill a favorable report at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair.
And let me say one other thing too. On describe us, refresh your memories on if a teacher has an injury like this, they're out of pocket before they get. In other words, it's not like traditional workers' comp where you get immediate relief. They have to go out of pocket. Is that correct?
So my understanding is they would get that, through the process, out of pockets that are not covered, they would be eligible to seek reimbursement.
Right.
And that's part of the issue now.
Right. Representative Daniels?
Yeah, so, Senator, I question, I'm looking at the sub here, line 326, talks about an employee must use the authorized treatment. So, in looking at the approved physician list, it appears that if we're trying to mirror PHIP, it appears that it reduces the options for the employees to actually have options to see certain physicians. So it looks like it's a limited number of physicians that the employees that can actually see. PHIP gives you the option for a much broader scope, and this seems like it narrows the scope of the number of physicians that you can see. This seems, if we're trying to be inconsistent with PHIP, this doesn't necessarily accomplish that. That's kind of.
Taylor Nichols with the Finance Department, can you speak to that point?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's with state employees, which I think is what you're getting at there. State employees do not get to choose their own doctor for purposes of evaluating their injury. The issue is, you can, how to say this politely, you can find a doctor somewhere who will say what you want to hear, right?
If you're limiting the scope, you can also find a doctor to say what you don't want to hear.
Sure. Yes, that's true. But this is part of the trade-off in a typical workers' comp program in which the doctors, who makes the evaluation is not wide open to the world.
How many physicians are in this sub? How many physicians does that limit the employees to?
There's not a particular number, and in fact, I would say the CTIF, the State Employees Program, does have a list now. This is not tied to that particular list. It would work the same way, but I think we would probably have to have more doctors on the list.
But this is the same structure that we have in the others, I guess.
Correct. Same structure, but it's not the same list.
Yeah, the list is much different. It's a very reduced pool of about 30 something, between 30 and 40. And this is a large
that right?
state.
In the current CTEF program, in the state employees program?
No, I'm saying this one does not mirror the current state employees program, the number of physicians that you could see. I thought this appears to be limited.
This bill does not have a particular number or a particular list in it. That would be up to the board to determine who,
So this
who those
new
physicians
board
are.
would
The
determine.
board of the new entity, the new
The new entity,
trust fund,
and
yes.
so
Their board would decide who those doctors are.
I mean, I
why
don't
would
think
we use something that's already in place, though? I mean, that's this redundancy is just unnecessary to me.
I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, I think what they're saying is that I don't see there's any limit.
So the new board will determine
Well,
which
teacher, there are two different programs. I think teachers also get disability, which state employees don't after a certain period of time if they're vested. I mean, there's a lot of different nuances here, right? But I don't think by design this limits the physicians. I don't see that.
This would work in the same way it works for state employees.
So it will be mirrored to whatever is in place for the state employees.
Correct.
That's the way I understand it. That's
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Representative Wood, you had a question?
I think when we're talking about the fiscal note, I do think that it's hard to determine that because you have to account for the subs. And I think just like we ran into with maternity leave, you're basing your information on things that have happened in the past. And so I'm not as concerned about that as I think you are until we actually see some real numbers. But I do think that classrooms cannot be empty. You have to place the subs in there. And so that's where a lot of the cost is coming from. But they need to be there. And I think this is a great bill. When we watch those individuals sitting here, and I have also received phone calls, even one from a special ed teacher that had her front teeth knocked out. And there was no one to help her. And she had to go to that board. She had to pay all of that dental work up front and then go to them and ask for reimbursement. And it wasn't something that just did not look pleasing. She needed her teeth to eat. I mean, it's a terrible situation. And we should offer this for our education people, everyone involved. They should have this, but I think it's a great bill.
Representative Faulkner?
Yeah, this is the great thing about being in the legislature. You get to learn something new all the time. And
Well, we don't need CLE, Representative.
I had no idea that even our state employees were not under our regular workers' compensation program that's out there. So that is news to me. But so currently, the public education employees do not have any form of workers' compensation?
That's correct.
Why are they not under already the state employees, whatever you call it, injury compensation program?
I couldn't speak to that. This was in place, I think, long before most of us, if not all of us, got in the legislature.
So I've just never
not Jabbo, but I mean,
Yeah.
Were you?
I've never heard of this. Nobody's
Faulkner, you weren't here last week, were you? Okay, so there was a public hearing last week where they kind of talked about the current situation, which is there's no workers' comp for teachers. That's why we are bringing this up.
Yeah.
There's a board of adjustments, which he mentioned are 3 people in the executive branch, and they're not really equipped to do, and there's just a lot of, so this was trying to set up something. Now, we're doing this at the 11th hour, and when you do things 11th hour, a lot of times you do bad, which we don't want to do. So I think we've tightened this thing up quite a bit. I'm just suggesting if we want to move this thing forward, we still have a couple of days to try to work through and hear from others. I've heard others may want to weigh in as well. But that's the thought. And
Mr. Chairman,
but I will defer to the committee. Representative,
okay.
You finished? You have any?
Well, I guess I
No,
am.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, we can. No, go ahead. We can. We can replay the public hearing from last week if you like.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
I'll update my law school classmate a little bit later.
No, seriously, you have any other questions about seriously, Representative Faulkner, any other questions? Okay. Representative Colvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, so I used to sell work comp, and I don't know if it's state or federal law that if a business has 5 or more employees, they're required to carry work comp. I guess
That's state law.
I guess public entities just don't fall under that same
Correct.
state. Okay. Wow.
I don't know what the cutoff is, but I know that if you don't have it and you're over the threshold, good luck when you get to write that check.
I've always thought you were a man of your word, but I don't believe you're old enough to have done anything, you know? Anybody else? Any other questions? Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to, I guess, the process in terms of when you have a workman comp's claim, I guess the employee makes the claim and the employer has a response to that claim.
Correct.
And then we have a third-party administrator that kind of get in the weeds and kind of determine what's what. Seems like to me this review board here in this bill is kind of repetitive, and it kind of holds up the process in terms of getting that employee the necessary help that they need. So I guess what was the rationale behind this review board if we already have the third-party adjuster? Because it seemed like to me we kind of just going back to the 3-member board of adjusters where they can probably potentially do the same thing that we trying to prevent.
So Representative Lawrence, what the way it works now, like with home builders, particularly is one I guess I know a little bit about just from my previous law firm. There's in a lot of different things, I think even the state employees, there is a third party, I don't know who these people are, but they have companies out there that it's their business to sort of, assess injured workers, assess what the liability is, assess how it's going to be paid. And so they would say, all right, employee A, you're going to get, I'm making numbers up, just, you're going to get, $20,000 for this injury. And then if employee A is not satisfied with that, then they would be able to go to either the review board or more likely than this list of neutrals for an administrative law judge to be able to handle it. Similarly, the way this was supposed to be drafted, and I didn't look at this little nuance in between our conversation yesterday and this morning, is that the employer was supposed to have that right too. Now, I don't know which way they would prefer, but right now in conventional workers' comp, if you have a dispute with this third-party administrator and you just don't agree with them, you feel like you're being not being fairly compensated, or if the employer feels like they're giving you too much, then you can appeal to circuit court. We don't want to get into that. In fact, I would argue we probably should use this model. Maybe going to get people worked up, but on our existing workers' comp, to get those cases out of circuit court, where, and frankly, in many cases, if I were a circuit judge, somebody came in front of me with a workers' comp case, I'd be going, y'all tell me what this is about. What we're going to do here is go with a list of people who actually know what workers' comp does, know what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to operate, how those injuries are supposed to be evaluated, and they're going to handle that. And, I don't think many people will be going with a review board. That's just in the existing education statute, state employee statute, so it just kind of is mirrored in this.
Representative Daniels.
Yes, what's your name? I'm sorry. Taylor Nichols. So a question for Taylor. I guess currently the state employees, how do they identify the physicians? Is there a process? Is there an interview process? How do they deem which physicians are on the approved list? Because I think that from a comfortability standpoint, their own physician would have a better, handle on the actual individuals than some third party, some other physician. I just want to know how they're chosen, because for me, if I'm choosing the physicians that could see the employees upon injury, then if I'm creating a preferred list, then oftentimes those individuals will likely try to give me some grace as the person that's choosing the physician. Not saying that they're going to be unethical or anything, but I'm just trying to understand the process for choosing those individual physicians.
Yes, sir. Those are chosen.
Is there a criteria?
There is a criteria in that the current CTIF program, the State Employees Program, that program looks for industrial medicine specialists who specialize in workers' injury situations. They look for that particular type of doctor and enter into contracts with those. There's a list on the CTIF site that they publish of who those are, and there are several in each county that qualify under that list. But they do create a pretty extensive list of doctors for that purpose.
And the last question I have, and you and I can talk offline.
Yes, sir.
Is there a physician for every county? Now, we know how many counties in the state of Alabama.
Sure.
Is there a preferred physician in every county because this is about accommodating the employees as well,
Sure.
right? You bypass 4 or 5 physicians to get to one and out of town. I just want to make certain that there are physicians in proximity to where employees are, at least in the same county or within a certain mile radius, and I'm just curious about that, and have those things been considered when choosing these physicians?
There are certainly, I couldn't say that there are physicians in every county. It is certainly distributed across the state because they're trying to get physicians close to where injuries occur. They don't want people to have to go across the state to get evaluated. One other point I do want to make about that, though, is that this is different than your treating physician. This is just for evaluation as to your injury to find out whether you should, in fact, receive the benefits or not. Treatment is a different physician, and that is through PHIP.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I think we either decide whether we want to move this bill forward and continue to work on it and address this issue this session, or do we want to not? And I think we've got to just make that decision. And again, if we move it forward, there's still quite a bit of work to do before it gets to be on the floor of the House. First, we got to adopt a sub, though, I think, right? So she's made a motion to adopt a sub. Is there a second on the sub? Second, Representative Collins, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So we have a sub.
And I second it.
We have a favor report by Representative Drummond, second by Representative Lawrence. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The bill's getting a favor report. Let's continue to work on it because again, we're on a very short runway. And appreciate your work on this leadership. And it's a heavy lift at this point, but I think if we get all the right parties involved, we can make some progress.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
your
And I would encourage
effort
any
on this.
committee member to speak with Taylor Nichols or with Senator Gavan about your specific concerns. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, call the next bill, please, clerk.
House Bill 118 by Representative Robbins.
So we took a lot of time today, so we need for you to be as concise as you can be. But, we love out-of-the-box thinking. We encourage out-of-the-box thinking. Representative Robbins thinks out of the box, and he and I have had a lot of discussions over the past couple of years, and he has an out-of-the-box idea that it's a House bill, so we can't do anything with it this session, but he'd like to present his concept for your consideration maybe next year.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
it's
thank you so much for
number-
giving me the opportunity to speak to y'all today.
Tab
This
number
bill
3.
is
Tab 3.
I'll be as concise as possible. I have a handout right here for you that is data pulled from the Shoals Economic Development Authority. So what this bill is we passed tremendous amount of bills to incentivize business to come here, to grow our economy, and that's all this bill is as workers become more transient, less tied to their physical location, we need to attract those workers and those people to the state of Alabama. And as we have a workforce shortage in certain industries, my logic is why don't we just go out and poach those people from other states and bring them to Alabama? And the way to do that is to offer them money. So instead of saying, which also Oklahoma, West Virginia, New Hampshire, and a few other cities, what they've done is they've created a fund and just pay people to move to their communities. And if you look at what the Shoals have done by paying people $10,000, they've had 3,000 applications look to move to the Shoals area. 80 people have relocated, and this was from July 2022. and you can see the revenue that it's generated. So my plan is we want to move people to areas that need growth. So I've considered affected counties. If you're a Tier 1 county, which means you have less than 25,000 people, and you move to that community, you will get a tax credit of $30,000. If you move to a Tier 2 county, which is between 25 and 50,000, you would then get $20,000. You move to a Tier 3 county, which is 50,000 to 100,000 people, you get $10,000. And if you move to an opportunity zone, you get a $5,000 credit, and you can double that $5,000 credit if you move to a rural county in an opportunity zone. So yes, it's a tax credit, but this is all new people. So we're not actually cutting any current residents' taxes, so we're not losing any revenue. They're actually coming here, and then they're going to spend money on SSUT, local sales tax. So we will actually generate money, as you can see, what the Shoals has done by just giving people an incentive, because we are losing people and we cannot do anything about the taxes. But talking to the Shoals and recruiting people, we lose people to Tennessee and Florida because of the income tax situations. They don't have it. They still get taxed in other ways, but people see, hey, I don't pay income tax, where we could say, move to Alabama and you move to this county, we'll give you $30,000 off in your taxes, and you move to an opportunity zone in that county, you get $35,000 off. So it's only people that have disposable incomes that will spend money, and the other industries that we're targeting are if you are a law enforcement officer, nurse, or teacher, you get this credit.
It refresh my memory. I think I know, but the Shoals is what area? Tell me.
So it is the Shoals Economic Development Authority, and so that would be, Jamie Kill could probably tell you more about that, but it's all the communities up there are in one Economic Development Authority, and they've put together a plan, and it's out of their EDA. Right, Northwest Alabama will just pay you.
Yeah. So out of the box, right? So Representative Drummond first.
It's way out of the box. Tell me, do the current program in the Shoals, do they select certain professions that these people have to move into the area to do? And I'll use nursing or healthcare or teachers, or do they just say, come to us and we'll give you $30,000? And
no, the way the Shoals work, and the way West Virginia does it. See, West Virginia created this off of through West Virginia University, an endowment from a wealthy West Virginia alumni graduate. So the way they do it is they give you money, but it's all about remote work. So West Virginia said, we're going to create these little tech hubs, and we'll pay you if you're a tech worker and remote work and you move to our state. The Shoals is all about remote work. So I added the components of nursing, teacher, and law enforcement. So you have to be a remote worker, and you have to earn, I can't remember the exact number, but I think you have to make at least $50,000, 55, and you have to apply, and then they have to select you. So what happens, what they've told me in the Shoals is what happens is, so usually, all right, you apply, you make $55,000. You might be married, you might have children. So automatically what's happened is, and if we did this, you'd all of a sudden have people coming into rural communities or opportunity zones, which are low, typically are low SES. You have people moving in that now have disposable incomes that will renovate houses, build a house, and they might be married, so their spouse might be working somewhere, and now their spouse is paying taxes. And then they also, because they're transient and younger most likely, might have children. So now you get Little League volunteers. You get sponsors that will help with the kids' activities at schools. So you're building a middle class, and you're just pulling it from other places and saying, we're just going to create our own middle class by pulling these people from other parts of the country.
Stubbs?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this. It definitely is an interesting idea. So a $30,000 tax credit, a tax credit requires tax liability. And if you're making $55,000 a year, your tax liability on a state level is not remotely close to $30,000. So is this something that
you would
carries
be zeroed
over?
out? You'd be zeroed out. So you get it for 3 years. So you wouldn't be able to carry it forward. You would just be down to zero. So if your tax liability was less than that, we would zero you out. So, and yes, there has to be a tax liability, but we were not collecting taxes from that individual in the tax year prior, so their
Right.
liability doesn't start until they move. And so basically what we would say is, we just won't collect taxes from you for 3 years.
Right.
To incentivize you to
and,
move here.
I mean, I think it's a great deal for the state because we're telling them they're getting a $30,000 tax credit, but they're really getting like $4,500 over 3 years. I mean, it sounds, if you make $55,000 a year and you're at the cap of Alabama state income tax, you're paying, $1,500, $1,800 a year in taxes. You're probably getting deductions for children and other things. So I'm not saying, I think you said West Virginia actually gives people cash.
They give you cash.
Right. And, if you gave somebody $5,000 cash, it may actually be better than a $30,000 tax credit. They may not see it that way.
Well, I think you're right, Representative
That's the way I
Stubbs.
would look at it.
I think you're right, but then the issue is if you give money, that's then an appropriation from the budget, so that's direct money coming out of the budget, and then you have to set up a program on applications, who you accept those from, where do they move, and then it gets into issues where I'd rather just say, just if you come, you get it, and then, incentivize so we could open it up to more
Representative
people.
Colvin's not here. I think he would fund it for
So this is this is the Ben Robbins transfer portal bill is what I look at. So,
Exactly.
but-
I mean, we
but-
might as
but
well.
I mean, I appreciate the idea, and I will say this. He came several years ago with this Earth project in the Talladega County, which was a very innovative, and hopefully that thing is progressing like we expect. But it was a great workforce development project, which the governor funded, and we started here. The governor funded it, we funded it, and that's a good. So it addresses, I think, child care, transportation, a lot of the issues that you have in these areas where you're trying to attract workers. And this was I'd give you kudos for the idea, and I think I just wanted you to share this with the committee, and we ought to think about if there's any possibility to move something like this forward next session, maybe. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I think it's just another incentive like we give to businesses. We might as well just incentivize the people.
Any other thoughts or questions for the sponsor? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Members, we will, I'm sorry. Oh, Representative Lovern, yes. Oh, you have a guest? Oh. Well, very nice. Well, thank you. Welcome. So just to update the committee, the Senate passed the budget out of committee yesterday. Should be on the floor tomorrow, and I will update you on where that goes. But it's possible that we will not have to have a conference committee at this point, but we still have some things that's just a possibility. But also, again, the bill we talked about today, there's some conditional appropriation in the budget for that. And if this bill doesn't pass, then that money would revert elsewhere. So we'll just stay tuned, keep you posted. And any other comments for the good of the committee? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're adjourned.